Hi there. Anime NYC launched 1 year ago to bring the best of Japanese pop culture here to the biggest city in America. We're back this weekend. We're going to welcome over 30,000 fans, and I'm excited for that. But I'm even more excited to be standing here today with all of you to start something new, the Anime Business Conference. Our goal here today in the media and the entertainment capital of the world is to start a dialogue about the business of the Japanese pop culture business, to begin a discussion between people actively in the anime world and professionals looking to understand it more. So thank you. I'm thrilled to be here with all of you. I'm deeply honored that Japan Society is our host. This is a 100-plus-year-old institution, and this stage is typically home to CEOs of major Japanese companies or masters of the traditional arts. And today we're going to talk about anime. And now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce the MC for today's events, Mr. Chris McDonald. Chris, I'm not done yet. Chris is CEO and publisher of Anime News Network. Anime News Network is the largest anime and manga news source in the world and welcomes over 8 million visitors every month. ANN is a leading name in anime news, and I couldn't think of a better name to lead today than Mr. Chris McDonald. So please, everyone, give Chris a round of applause.
Oh, that's bright. Thank you, Peter. They all said some really beautiful things, and I'm going to keep this short and sweet. Since Peter and I started talking about the Anime Business Conference a couple months ago, I really wanted it to be about the future of anime fandom, about the way the medium is changing, about the way delivery is changing. And one of the topics we settled on very quickly was changing consumption habits, how consumers are changing the way they watch anime, they read manga, and how they interact with companies. And when we settled on that topic, I couldn't think of anyone better to be our first keynote speaker than the founder of Crunchyroll, the anime company that has really taken advantage of and even in many cases built that changing consumption habit, Mr. Kun Gao, the co-founder of Crunchyroll.
Thanks, Chris. Hey, guys. So, welcome and thank you for joining us on this beautiful, warm, and sunny New York day. It's a perfect day to wear a t-shirt. And with that, I wanted to tell you a story. So a while back, I was going through customs to get back into San Francisco. And I made it through immigration, and I get to the customs, and there was a line. And I see this big, surly customs officer at the end of that line, and I thought to myself, don't make eye contact, and I'll be okay. And sure enough, I made eye contact, and he points at me, he singles me out, and he waves me forward, and he gives me a look over, and then he says, oh, Crunchyroll, I love anime. What do you do there? And I said, I'm an engineer. And so that's the t-shirt test, when someone else can recognize the company and the thing and the industry that you work in, and they are so passionate about it. And so when Crunchyroll launched 10 years ago, anime was in a much different place. It took months, even years, to get anime from home video. There was no internet distribution other than piracy, and fandom was nascent and sometimes even a looked down upon word. We are at a very, very interesting time for anime and for all of the internet industry. There is today zero-day access to basically everything anime. There is a huge global community of anime fans spanning many different countries, many different languages. There is so much more you can do with your passion, buying online merchandising, reading manga, both physical and digital, and gaming is continuing to explode. Fandom is doing great. You have superstar athletes who are warming up to watching anime on their mobile phones. You have football players who are cosplaying as Naruto characters, and you have skaters who are the inspiration for many of the shows that we are seeing today, such as Yuri on Ice. And you have major celebrities who are professing their love for anime, including Michael B. Jordan and Elon Musk. And finally, you have Goku, who is making an appearance at Thanksgiving's Macy's Day Parade. So, life is great, right? Anime's doing well. We're good. We don't need to do anything more. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The world has changed, and the world is continuing to change. And here are some of the things that are driving those changes. Unlike 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, everything is connected. Every single person in the world connected 24/7, 365 through their mobile phones. We have thousands of TV networks and influencers creating billions of minutes of entertainment every single week, every single month to capture people's attention span. Both online and offline are continuing to merge. Everyone who was born after the 1980s, they grew up in a time when it wasn't just we're going online. Online was always there. And for them, online and offline very much means the same thing. And finally, there's a blur between fans and creators. Every creator must really be a fan, and every fan can potentially be a creator and share their work globally among everyone that is connected. So, with all those changes, what is the biggest challenge for the anime industry today? Well, this is something that we think about all the time at Crunchyroll, and we've had a lot of discussions about. And as I was thinking about this presentation, I thought about what is the Crunchyroll challenge, and I think that that challenge is the exact same challenge our industry faces today, and I think it is the same challenge every company in anime faces, and I think it is the same challenge that any company in any adjacent industry faces. And that challenge is fans. Specifically, how do you make fans happy? And when you think about that, what does making fans happy mean? In a world in which there are billions of other people and billions of creators and many different ways of getting your entertainment, from gaming, from social, from video, from UGC, everyone is vying for a piece of your time. And that time is incredibly precious. And when you're a fan and you have a choice of picking between something that just entertains you, something that entertains you and makes you happy, you're going to go with what makes you happy. And so it's our jobs to make fans happy. Otherwise, we wouldn't exist. So when we think about making fans happy, it starts with first understanding fans. What makes them happy? Why are they liking anime so much? And then it goes towards how do you reach those fans and how do you super serve them? So these are the things that we think about at Crunchyroll. Now, I can only talk to you about some of the things that we've thought about and how we're approaching this problem. But I think this general framework makes sense for anyone who is in our industries. So from our perspective, why does anime matter? And once you figure out why that matters, then we think that we have an opportunity to empower a new generation of fans, as well as to connect those fans with creators. From the Crunchyroll perspective, we have a very large paid service, and we have an even larger ad-supported viewing service. And I'll skip all the details about what our audience specifically looks like. I think the important takeaway here is when we ask fans what is it they like about anime and what is it they like about Crunchyroll, they say that Crunchyroll has shaped who I am as a person today. And so if you think about that, that's incredibly powerful. 20 years ago, when we watched anime, we were already adults. We were watching it on TV. But today's kids are growing up with anime. Anime has changed who they are as people. Anime has instilled in them values, changed their passions. And I think that is incredibly powerful. And as a result, you have creators who themselves were fans first. They grew up as fans watching anime. They love anime so much. And they became creators, and now they are working on anime-inspired projects that they themselves want to watch, and we hope that more fans want to watch as well. And on the other side of the ocean, we're seeing so many creators in Japan who want to embrace this international movement. They want to connect with fans more closely globally, and they want to connect with creators to make something that is even more globally accessible. Now, when it comes to reaching fans, one of the most important things you have to do is directly engage with those fans. Additionally, you need to maximize your reach to new customers. And finally, you need to do all of that on their terms. As it relates to Crunchyroll, we have more than 45 million registered viewers. We have the biggest audience for anime viewers globally, and we have the biggest audience for anime subscribers globally. And because we operate our own platform, we're able to directly engage those viewers. And we're doing that across the globe in 9 different languages. And now we are part of Warner Media, and so those capabilities extend to Cartoon Network, who is in 100 million homes, as well as has the only programming block for anime in the US. And when I talk about reaching fans globally, here are some of the pictures of physical events that Crunchyroll set up or attended around the world, from Spain to Germany to France to Mexico to Brazil. If you are not reaching fans on their terms where they are, then you're not reaching fans at all. And finally, once you've reached those fans, you have to super serve them, because today's fans want more than just one experience. They want the entire lifestyle. And that for us means 360, it means gamification, and it means experiential and offline. And I think many of you already know that beyond streaming, Crunchyroll is in many other different services that fandom enjoys, such as reading manga, such as watching on TV, such as playing games, such as buying merchandise, and even listening to music. We're seeing an incredible growth in gaming and gamification as fans are really embracing game IP that is built around anime. And they want to not just watch shows, they want to play the shows, they want to be immersed in the shows, and they want to do it with a community of other fans. This is a game we launched 6 months ago that has blown our expectation in terms of what fans want to play, and we're launching many, many more. And finally, experiential. When every single person on the internet can have the exact same experience, there's a lot of people who want something a little bit different. They want to have something offline. They want to have something that no one else has experienced. And so when we set up a ball pit of banana plush, not only did fans enjoy that, they also ended up taking pictures and posting that onto Instagram. And don't worry, we wash the ball pit every day. So the world has and will continue to change. And as industry, it is our role to change with it. And the only thing I think, and the most important thing I think we need to focus on, is making fans happy. And that's it. Thank you.
So that brings us to our first roundtable, shifting trends in consumer habits or consumption habits. And I'd like to ask our 2 panelists for this panel to come up. Our first guest is Mr. Kurt Hassler, the publisher and managing director of Yen Press. Kurt, come on up. So previously, Kurt was the graphic novel buyer for Borders Book Group. And at Borders, he exerted so much influence over the manga industry that ICV2 once named him the most powerful man in the the manga industry. After leaving Borders in 2006, Mr. Hassler helped found Yen Press, which was an imprint at Hachette, and is now a JV between Hachette and Kadokawa Group. And he's been running the company ever since. Thank you for joining us, Kurt. Our second guest is Mr. Adam Sheehan, Director of Events at Crunchyroll and VRV, Verve. So, prior to joining Crunchyroll in 2015, Adam's been at Score Entertainment Trading Card Company. Then he joined Funimation in 2004. Over nearly a decade at Funimation, he wore numerous hats, but important to this particular discussion, he was senior marketing manager of Funimation's internet streaming platform, Funimation.com, and of course, most recently, he moved to the company that we just heard a bit about, Crunchyroll, the company that is born of the internet era. So, without further ado, I'm going to join these gentlemen over there, and we're going to get started.
This is an interesting setup. I feel like I should have a banjo.
We can play like a, what do you call it, a little harmonica or jug. I would love to have a jug.
Spoons. I saw spoons upstairs. Let's get a...
Changing the panel. Let's get some stuff up here.
That would be fun. That would be fun.
And he plays the hits.
Who wants banjos? Who wants media consumption habits?
Banjos.
Why not both? Why not both is what I'm hearing.
Okay, so before we get started, Anime News Network's been running this. Is this on? I guess it is. Anime News Network's been running this survey for the last decade, and we've been running the survey with the identical or almost identical questions. And one of the very interesting facts that I've seen since 2010 is the number of readers who prefer to watch anime on DVD versus online. In 2010, that was 86% of our readers preferred to watch anime by DVD. 86%. Today, today, as in literally yesterday, it was 17.5%. Meanwhile, the number of readers who prefer to watch anime on paid subscription platforms, such as Crunchyroll, Elite, Premium? Premium members. Elite was something else he worked on.
That was the Funimation deal back
yes.
in the day.
So the number of readers who prefer to watch anime on a paid subscription service has gone from 11% to 40%, and 73% of our readers have subscriptions to services. Still, over 53% of our readers do continue to buy anime on DVD or Blu-ray, so there's a reason they like those that physical media. It's sticking around for anime. And over on the manga side, we see a very slightly different trend. Over 66% of our readers prefer to read manga the old-fashioned way. And interestingly enough, since 2012, that number has steadily but slowly increased from 63%. There's like 0.5% every year it goes up consistently. So, gentlemen, my first question is very vague, and Adam was telling me he could fill the entire panel with his answer to this question.
You don't need me then.
But I'm up here with him alone, my God.
Briefly, could you tell us a bit about what you've seen in the change in the physical media and the shift to digital during your careers?
Overall, basically, there has definitely been a shift to digital. It's just basically become ubiquitous because people can watch it anywhere, watch anime where they want. I've joked in panels that basically, while waiting in line for this panel, you could watch the episodes leading up to this panel, kind of thing. And people actually do that. But I'm happy to still say, basically, that anime, unlike a lot of other things in the entertainment one, you see the big dive off the cliff of physical media is not actually even close to the same, luckily. And what's really the big difference is that it's the offerings. The offerings itself that's coming out, or being basically, if you're like, oh, I can buy a DVD if it's got 4 episodes and that's it, or I can watch 4 episodes online, they're going to go watch 4 episodes online. But if I really love the show, and this box set comes with like, you know, a figure, booklet, extra stuff, the cool looking awesome thing that I can put on my shelf and show my friends, I love this show when I'm on there, they're still buying that. They're actually, instead of spending, you know, $30 per DVD for 4 episodes like they did back in the day, they'll happily drop $100 plus to get a really nice box set to put on their shelf. So the consumption's changed. So the standard releases you're seeing Hollywood put out, like I Have a Movie, they're falling off in some spots, going towards iTunes and things like that, because it's just the movie. They don't have anything else to put on the shelf, so to speak. So the physical nature of anime still is there. It's just shifting gears, and it's in an untraditional way, where it used to be went from VHS to DVD, DVD to Blu-ray. Now it's basically is like, I need content, format is less of a thing. It's what's all around it. What do the fans want? And it's the collectible part of it all still.
Collectability is definitely a factor. I mean, you know, we have been experimenting and exploring more with that. But for our business, there is nothing like reading a book. If you're reading, the act of holding a book, the act of turning the pages, that is an experience in and of itself. And while you can consume the same content digitally, the experience is fundamentally different. There's something very tactile about holding a book, and you know, the digital media threat to publishing has been discussed at length. There was certainly a time not not that many years ago when everyone was crying that the sky was falling and books would no longer be a thing, everything would be on a tablet, everything would be on a Kindle, print was dying, and, not long after those outcries, we saw the digital market very much plateau in the United States. It became a very steady sort of 25 to 30% of the business. And it was more of a replacement of one format of print, specifically a mass market trim size book, for carrying around and reading on a plane. That seems to have largely shifted to digital consumption for convenience. But at the end of the day, when they do surveys of kids and they're asked how do they prefer consuming it, almost universally they prefer that experience of print. So print is not going away. It may change, you may have different options of how to consume something, but much like the vinyl resurgence, there's a nostalgia for it. The experience of reading a book in print is something very unique, and as a publisher, I'm very grateful to see that affinity from readers.
It's like basically you see people out there like, I can't smell a tablet like I smell a book.
My editors are constantly getting high on the glue when they open up the new books that come in.
So you're adding stuff special. Like, tell the world. It's really special.
That is a special benefit. You cannot get high on glue from sniffing your iPad.
It's interesting that you bring up vinyl because, a lot of the people getting into vinyl today weren't around when vinyl actually was the primary method for delivering music. And so today you have kids getting into manga that are buying your physical products. They're not buying it out of nostalgia. Yeah. But unlike vinyl, I don't think they're doing it out of novelty. I think there's a preference for the form.
There's a preference for the form because when you look at how the creators address it, if something is envisioned for print, that is how it's being created. If you're looking at something on the internet, there is no reason to lay out a page the way it's laid out for print. It is a very specific device orchestrated around the delivery and the experience of the consumer. You're not tied to those formats, you're not tied to those restrictions. And as much as digital came up as a part of the industry and you had publishers very worried about how much it was overtaking print, for the manga and comics side of the business, it's a far lower percentage, specifically because of that experience, that presentation. It lends itself to that physical, tactile experience with the product.
Yeah. It really comes down to almost basically is like the delivery mechanism is what they first when they get their hands on is like, oh, I like this one, I like this one, I like this one. Yeah. Or with anime, basically looking on a screen or looking on your phone or wherever you're looking at is same as I'm watching on a television. The formatting is not the thing. It's you got to have something extra with it to make it worthwhile one way or another.
So that would be true regardless of a person's generation. A lot of people think that it's a generational issue. And as today's kids that grew up with cell phones, reading manga, watching anime on cell phones get older, there will be no memory of the traditional way. But what you're saying is that that's not the case for manga because the traditional way is just preferable in many ways.
Again, it's that experience of holding a book. It is more immersive in many ways than just flicking through a screen. We spend our lives now with screens blaring at us, and holding a book, thumbing through paper, is a it's relaxing. It is an experience in and of itself that as much as you can consume the content through that screen, it's still not the same experience. You can talk about music or vinyl. Listening to the record skip, that's an experience.
Want those scratches.
If there's a reason for people to get into vinyl now, it's because it's taking them out of that electronic experience of music. It's taking them back to something that's a little more removed from the day-to-day. I'm at work, I'm working on this screen, I'm working on this paper, but on a computer. This is something that takes you out of that in a very relaxing way. So it is something different. It is something different. And you can't replicate that with anime because there's always going to be a screen blaring at you until they've got a plug that they're going to put in your head, and then you can just see it
we're in the cloud.
So speaking of anime, and Adam, you mentioned that anime's been doing better than the rest of the video media industry. And I happen to know that actually over the last 2 years, anime sales in North America have increased, which blows everyone away because during that same period, home video sales globally, in North America across all formats has decreased 25%. Why do you think anime sales have been going up on physical media?
As mentioned, basically, I think the focus on the fans, as Kun brought up, basically, as I mentioned with the collector's edition, we call things like that, that's a big driver of it. People actually want to own that physical media, and the marketing teams out there for multiple anime companies are doing it right in one way or another, in different ways, which I think is really exciting too, but shows there's more than just one way to make anime happen. That basically, looking at what's going on there in the anime space right now is amazing because people still want to actually have it, they want to own it, and when people are being marketed to, they're like, don't talk to me like I'm 5,000 people, like I'm a commercial running during a football game. Talk to me. Talk to what I like. Talk to basically what I care about. And anime companies are picking up on that. And it's also a plus because anime fans, I've been doing this for 20 years, and basically anime fans are brutally honest, both good and positive, good and bad. So I'm doing a lot of conventions in those times. So people come up to you, basically they'll walk up to you and they'll gush about their favorite show. At their same level, they'll tear into you if you didn't do something they like. And we take that all, to heart in a big, group along those lines. But they wouldn't come at you if they didn't think you'd actually listen or be some kind of sounding board. And a lot of times, basically, we've talked to the fans directly because, again, at conventions you get to, and speaking engagements like this, you get to, and explain to them, basically, it's like, what you did here, or how you guys told us, we adapted and adjusted. Like our social media team at Crunchyroll, those guys are busy 24/7 because they're reading and watching stuff, and it's not just putting out fires and posting new episodes. It's actually engaging with the fans, and that's what they want. And because of that, they want to own a piece of it. And a piece of it isn't a digital file. You can't frame a floppy disk, like show my age. But you can basically put something on the shelf. And so basically actually owning it, or basically, you can say, hey, dude, you should watch this on Crunchyroll, and that does work out very well. But it's something different going like, hey, let me pull this off my shelf, like almost get the angels pull off the side and give it to someone and say, you need to return this back to me in good care. There's an extra feeling to it. It's a connection.
Okay. Sorry.
No worries.
He was very moved.
He was,
Yes, it's a beautiful answer. Speaking about Crunchyroll and touching a bit on what Kun mentioned earlier, that always thinking about the fans, always watching what they want, and we saw that the internet was a big threat to home video, and anime on home video, anime companies have found a way to deal with that to continue serving the fans, but it's something that was a big challenge for them, and they were very scared about it, and not every company survived as well as others. Now, Crunchyroll is born of the internet era. Crunchyroll is born in what's going on right now. But that's how companies like Funimation, ADV Films, etc., felt 20 years ago. And the internet came along, and it was a very destructive force. Are there changes going on that worries Crunchyroll?
Well, we're lucky enough, smart enough to basically say, don't do what we've seen other people do, not just, ADV, Funimation, or anyone else like that. Basically, just companies in the past that sit on the laurels and like, we're top of the heap. We'll just keep doing this business and just, beat it into the ground. The music industry is a great way of just saying, la, 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 sell more CDs. It's got to basically be aware that things are always changing. And so quickly, too, that we're basically watching what's next and being able to pivot. So a lot of different things we're basically doing that between, like a lot of different events. We started, Crunchyroll Expo. We're doing Crunchyroll movie nights. We're doing a variety of different things in different countries and things like that to basically to expand on the reach of what it is because we see the fans want that kind of thing. So I think we're in a good spot of what Crunchyroll's doing to watch what's next and being smart enough to say we might be, we're doing really, really well now, but who knows what's going to happen next. I mean, ADV in the 90s, basically, they were putting out everything under the sun. They were doing an amazing job of it. And now they are not here anymore. They've published with multiple different companies, thank goodness. But they're very different. Or I remember in 2007 when I was at Funimation where the housing crisis hit every industry ever. I had to spend half a year going around to conventions with the Don't Panic campaign telling everyone anime's going to be fine and showing them why so they could breathe easily at night and keep buying our DVDs. So basically, as long as we keep that mentality of saying what's next is important, just as important as what's happening right now. I think we'll do okay.
Cool. And Kurt, what about for manga? What's I mean, you personally, you've been working a lot on digital, and you've talked about how digital has reached a certain percentage of sales and kind of stayed there. What's changing right now? What are you working on to reach fans in the future?
I mean, the biggest challenge we have with digital is, one, we took a long time to get those rights. You know, licensors and creators, we still have creators today that do not want to see their material released digitally. There are books that are not available because the creator doesn't like the rendition of those digital. So for us, it's about addressing the fact that digital does exist. It is out there, fans want it, and that is where we have rampant piracy, which is a huge problem for the manga industry in general. It's hard to compete with free all the time, every day, generating for somebody money for somebody through ad revenue that has nothing to do with the product, that isn't going to the creator, that isn't supporting the industry as a whole. That is hands down our biggest challenge. You know, it's something that Japan has recently had to deal with themselves. You know, they had a major pirate site in the Japanese market in a way that they had not seen before. They really hadn't had to, you know, watch the experience of seeing your business tanked because people were going to, you know, illicit sources to get the material. Now, they addressed it in the Japanese market by basically having the government come in, crack down, shut down the site. They can control it within that sphere, and they immediately saw those sales rebound. You know, those people who had gotten accustomed to pirating, you know, through online sources, they moved largely to digital sales. So they saw those digital sales spike almost immediately on the heels of the pirate sites coming down. Now, we are still in a situation where we're trying to secure those rights, you know, on a broad-based way, and we're trying to break down territory restrictions. I mean, the world historically has been carved up into boundaries, and you're allowed to sell within this one boundary, but not the other. And if you're talking about the fan that's in the territory that can't get legitimate access to it is understandably frustrated. So one of our major things has been breaking down those restrictions, you know, breaking them down and having global availability to the English language iterations of the product. And we've gone further and we're expanding that now to the print side of the business for the exact same reason. You know, we had been for years working within the bucket of North America and the UK. Those were the only regions where we were allowed to sell our books. That is rapidly changing, and it's created a massive expansion of our business because there is demand for the product in the English language. And it's getting companies and creators to understand that they do have to recognize there are fans who want access to this content and are willing to pay for it. You know, one of the most gratifying things we see digitally is the fans now stepping up and saying, no, this pirate site isn't good. When creators are going online and saying, please stop pirating my material. It's available. You can get it. It's impacting me financially that you are not supporting my work through a way that benefits me. That is the biggest challenge we have, and it is something that the industry as a whole is struggling to address. You know, breaking down the territories is really first and foremost getting access to the content, providing the material simultaneously with Japan, you know, getting the assets a few days in advance so that we can post it, you know, globally through legitimate sources the same day that the magazine is going up in Japan. Those are the steps we're trying to take, and it's a long, slow process. You know, one of the most frustrating things for publishers is, you know, certainly before digital rights were being granted, we would hear the fans saying, well, why can't I get this digitally? It's so obvious. Like, we know about the internet. This is not news to us. We have computers. We're aware we can't do it. So it's working through those channels to make those very big changes and course corrections within the market that takes time and effort, and you know, it is paying off because we are, you know, that is now a very legitimate channel for the product.
Well, that's actually really interesting, and I'm going to go off away from our script a tiny bit.
I didn't read it in advance, so that's okay.
No problem.
We're good at winging it. It's great.
So actually, a huge part of my personal work for the last couple of months has been researching the anime industry internationally and the manga industry. And you were just talking about how the internet, how you've gone to many different markets. I assume you're talking both physical and digital, but obviously the internet helps a lot with that. Now, being an internet company, I know Crunchyroll has made advances into other markets as well.
We're everywhere besides North Korea.
I was wondering if that was something you were able to talk to.
I can add a little bit to it. I don't know as much on the industry side of the business, but overall, basically, again, we're in 8 languages, translated again just as fast as English. So basically, after it's been on air in Japan, 10 minutes later, it's in 8 languages around the world, available in HD, 4K, and all that wonderful fun stuff. And basically, the different markets want it different ways. Like one thing we recently realized was in Russia, which has been an emerging market. They dub things differently. But basically, you've seen an English dub, basically, this person says this word, this person says this word. In Russia, basically, they just have one person with a microphone to say everything they're saying over the dialogue. So you hear the Japanese, and then you hear a guy in Russian come over and say, I would like to be a cat, or something along those lines.
And they don't like subtitles.
So basically, it's basically going with where the market is, and then basically seeing what they prefer, and then catering to that. That's, again, I was talking about be aware of what people want, the fans want, and each country is a little differently. And what they actually really like, for whatever reason anime got grown into there, is important to take that into account. Like in, everywhere, they love Dragon Ball Z. They love Dragon Ball Super. They love all that stuff. Go to LATAM, they love Dragon Ball Z. Oh my God, like it blows away even the US market along those lines. I go talk to France, which basically is like Japan 2 when it comes to anime and manga. Basically, they love Saint Seiya, and basically a lot of the things have been done over there. Rose of Versailles, of course, and along those lines. So with all those things out there, basically, it's very much just watching what they want over there and then accustoming to that. We actually have a whole international team that takes on events, social media, translation, engineering, a variety of different things, just so we can focus on that, because we are aware the globe is, the globe. It's not just the U.S.
And what about you, Kurt? Have you seen differences in expectations because of the different ways people have grown up reading manga internationally?
Not necessarily, on the manga side of things. Certainly fans have opinions about the way we handle translations. Always comments about this was mistranslated.
Really? You too?
But, at the end of the day, the product is what the product is. It's being presented on paper. We're functionally striving to recreate the experience as closely as we can to the way it was intended in the native language. And that doesn't change much across markets. What's popular across markets may change dramatically, just because you mentioned Saint Seiya. Huge in France, never been a big property in the US. Can I say why? No, I can't. But I know it has not taken off in the US market the way it has in other markets. You do try to take the fan into account, but for our purposes especially, there's more than just the fan to consider. A lot of the time it comes down to the creator. The creator has certain ways that they want to see the material handled. So when we are actually licensing a book, we're not licensing it for the fans. We're licensing it on behalf of the creator. Good example of this, years ago we licensed a property called Spice and Wolf. Fan translations had existed for years. We're doing the first book, and there was a question of what is the titular character's name? Is it Horo or is it Holo? We asked the creator, and he was quite explicit. It's Holo. We put it out as Holo because that's what the creator said. He named the character. It's his thing. And the fans went nuts. No, that's not the name. It is the name. So it would have been very easy to say, oh, well, just go with what the fans. But it's not just about the fans. There's a respect for the property in itself that has to be at the core of what we do. Consideration of the author's feelings, consideration of the intent behind the material sometimes has to come before what is easier for our interaction with the fans.
And it's about that balance. It's funny you bring that up, because I remember exactly as Funimation was putting out Spice and Wolf when they came out, and it fell into the mix that we were doing there too. But I remember way back in the day when I forget who Anime Works or someone was bringing out Rurouni Kenshin. what I call officially. And a lot of fans were like, why'd you take all the swearing? Why'd you edit this? And I guess a fan subgroup out there just threw in a bunch of just swears, like just into it. It was not in the original at all.
There?
But that's what they saw, so they thought it was edited. And it's like, no, it's not at all the way it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to take into consideration what's correct as well as the fans.
Cool. Well, you two are two of the most interesting people I know, and I'm sure we could talk about this for hours. Unfortunately, there's a schedule, so maybe tonight we can continue in private.
Absolutely.
But,
Sure we can.
Thank you very much for coming up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're back, and we are going to start our second keynote in a few seconds. I think I was in the process of introducing Ms. Charlene Ingram, a longtime friend and a longtime member of the anime industry. Charlene has worked at numerous anime companies. She's been marketing anime for over 15 years, I think. And now she's moved on to a really cool career marketing super video games to a very similar demographic of fans. Charlene is one of the most interesting, most knowledgeable people I know when it comes to understanding what fans want, how to reach the fans, and how to engage with them. So without further ado, Ms. Charlene Ingram.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Chris. That was such a lovely introduction. Pardon me for being a little nervous speaking after all of these great speakers, especially Kun Gao, who's someone we can all look up to in the industry. So for my presentation, I'm going to take a little bit of a different tack, and I'm going to have a little bit of fun with it. I am going to talk a little bit about my story and fandom in the industry, and how for the anime industry, not just anime, the entire Japanese contents industry, how fans are your secret weapon to marketing this product, being authentic, and finding a new audience. So I guess I'll start. I'll introduce myself. My name is Char, as Chris McDonald said. And I was a member of the anime industry for over 10 years. Made lots of wonderful memories. I got my start at Funimation, moved on to Viz Media, and just created magical memories the whole way. And now, like Chris said, now I work in video games, still in the Japanese contents industry. I work for a Japanese game publisher. I work for Capcom. And I started with them in May, so I haven't been away from anime for too long. And in fact, the games that I work on Street Fighter, Devil May Cry, and now Ace Attorney. So I haven't exactly strayed too far from my anime home. But what's really unique about me, for having been so long in the Japanese contents industry, I started out as a fan. Not just any type of fan. I started out as a cosplayer. In fact, in the late 90s, when the internet was just, the internet as we know it was just a wee baby, I was one of the first famous cosplayers on the internet. So needless to say, I love anime and I love Japanese contents so much. So when I joined the industry, it was pretty logical, right? Totally logical for a fan that's been in the industry for so long to make the leap. Back in my day, oh no, it was actually an extreme challenge, because especially at that time, and a little bit now, there was a resistance to fans, a big resistance to fans, and I've seen it throughout all the stages in my career, and frankly, it doesn't have to be that way, and you can change this, and it has come so far. It's never been easier for someone passionate about these contents to break into the industry. But I still think there's a little bit further we can go. So I'm here. As passionate as I am about the product, I'm passionate about the fans, and I'm passionate about having the best people selling the product. So, facts are facts. Fans are your secret weapon. If you want your team to have the edge, you need to have good, highly skilled fans on your team at every level in the organization. not just your interns. The best, most successful companies have fans all the way up to the top. And this is something when I started my career, I had to put my cosplay aside a little bit because people didn't take me seriously. Had to hide my figures, my autographed posters, my Japanese musical theater paraphernalia, all that glitter. I had to hide it. And it took me years to realize that that stuff, my passion, that was actually the source of my power. My power is purely based on happy, shiny colors and a lot of glitter. So with years and gaining my confidence, just like Elsa, I had to let it go. So why would you want to take the risk on fans? Especially, some of the talks that we heard that sometimes fans, as much as they love something, they can get very passionate and see things with tunnel vision. That's not necessarily the way that the creators had intended. But I'm here to say, it might be a double-edged sword, but it's a very powerful one. And there's 4 reasons why I'm going to evangelize the use of fans. And I'm going to drill into one of them because I only have a limited amount of time. We're going to talk about passion, we're going to talk about grit, we're going to talk about fresh ideas, and we're going to talk about empathy, because these are the things that give you the edge, and they maintain your authenticity. So first we're going to talk about passion, and this is the one I'm going to drill in on, but it's important to say first. Passion in entertainment, it's the thing that gets you through. The anime industry, well, anything entertainment, you're going to be working a lot of hard hours, long hours. You're going to have a lot of secrets you're never going to be able to tell. You're going to be, sometimes when you're holding on to something with the NDA, you just have to stew with it yourself for months. You have no outlet. But that passion that gets you through, that love and appreciation, that gets you through. And that is that spark that makes everything magical happen. And that spark is your authenticity. Going on that, fans have grit. Nothing gets you through like love. Nothing gets you through like just that grit to keep working hard, working with the teams, what you need to do to get that job done. When I have hired fans on my teams and I've worked with them, they've been the ones that have been ride or die to make an event happen, to make an activation happen, to make a brand launch. It's been fans that got it done. It's also been fans that have had the freshest ideas because, well, they're fans. They've been thinking about the stuff so much, and from being fresh in that fandom, they come to you with some pretty crazy stuff sometimes, but when the crazy stuff happens, that's when you make that magic. So they take that love of that content and they spin it into fresh ideas. And also when times get rough, fans have empathy. They care about the product and they care about the consumer, because the consumer is their peers. And that empathy, again, that is authenticity that cannot be replaced. It is something, the empathy of a fellow fan is something that absolutely cannot be faked. And so it's very important to have it. So basically, when you put fans on your team, love gets the job done, and we all work super hard, so we want to get the job done. So I want to hone in on passion and the power of it. I guess the best example to use is, well, my own experience and myself. So we're going to have a little fun, and I'm going to make fun of myself a little bit because, I don't know if you could tell, I'm a little bit of a glittery cheese ball. So fans make your events big, and the cool thing about them is you can have fans on stage and off. So this is one of the big Sailor Moon panels from Anime Expo a couple years ago. And there's about 3,000 people in the audience, no pressure, none at all. All of the voice actors on the stage, they were big fans of the show. And of course, everybody in the audience lining up since 5 a.m., they're fans of the show. And this actual panel is probably one of my most cherished memories in the industry because it went so well. Everyone had such a camaraderie. The audience had a great time. But the other memory I've never shared till this point, that room was so echoey, none of us on stage could hear what we were saying. none of us on stage could hear each other answering the questions, but we were having such a good time with each other, we got through, and it was definitely a magical experience. So it's great when you have these big venues, things being recorded, it's big. But that passion can also make it big and shiny, even when you're in a really tiny venue. This is a very, very, very tiny ballroom doing another panel. So that passion that comes from being a fan, you can make the most mundane space shine. And when you're in the anime industry, you don't always get to pick where your venues are. But one of the great things you have to keep in mind with fans and having fans on your team, you have to embrace the weird. This is a picture a friend made for me based on a meme of make a picture describing someone's personality, and I really felt that this one just nailed it. This is basically Chris didn't even have to introduce me. This is everything you need to know. This is everything you need to know about Char. But when you embrace the weird, the fans and the people on your team, they feel empowered to be their true, authentic self, which means they're not holding back, and they're devoting all of their energy to doing the best work for your consumer, your product, and ultimately for that creator that just wants their art seen. So yes, your passion is your authenticity, and that is your greatest weapon. But also, I don't want to make this just about anime, and not just about the consumer. When you have passion within your teams, on the anime industry, when you have your licensor relationships, in my world now, in video games, when you're working with the dev teams, when everybody is passionate, magic happens. So this is actually a licensor relationship. This is me and the producer of Devil May Cry. This is our natural state. I'm very thankful to have someone with the same chaotic energy as mine working with our goth boys. So you don't, even though it is business, you don't always have to take it super seriously because we're all here to have fun. So I'll just sum this up. Remember these points and reasons for having fans on your team. The passion, the grit, those fresh ideas, and that empathy. It's very, very important, and it will give everything you do the edge. Because, I'm gonna get cheesy, love is always the answer. And though I am a marketer, I'm a marketing director, I believe that you can market with a soul. You can love, you can care, you can hold the consumers first and be the most effective marketer. Because, frankly, the fans, they're always worth the effort. Always worth the effort. There's not a single hard event or something I've done. You can have no sleep. Like today, I haven't slept in 24 hours to be here with you. But everybody gathering together on a Thursday afternoon, it makes it worth it. Absolutely makes it worth it. So in closing, I always like to share, I want you guys to all be my friend on the internet too. I'm on Twitter, I'm very active on Twitter, Tristan Citrine, kept my old cosplay name, by the way, and I'm Char at sparklingdazzling.com, which again, is very accurate. So in short, I just want to say thanks, and love you all. Now, think about the fans and go make that magic. They deserve it. Thanks.
So without further ado, I would like to introduce our next panel, which is IRL marketing for media companies. Our first participant is, once again, Mr. Adam Sheehan. So earlier I discussed Adam's history as a marketer, but it's funny story. Adam started working, I mentioned before, at Score Entertainment, where he drove a Hummer around North America promoting Dragon Ball Z card game to fans, person to person. After that, he worked at Funimation, and while he was the marketing director for Funimation now. He, at another point in that career at Funimation, one of the hats he wore was the events coordinator. He was in charge of everything that Funimation did at their events around the country. Lots of interaction with fans. And then finally, most recently, he's the events coordinator, something like that, I can't read my notes, at Crunchyroll. And he launched Crunchyroll Expo. So I think Adam knows a few things about interacting with fans and how companies can use the real world to get to know their customers. My second guest is, I don't know who's supposed to be next, but I'm going to choose Ian.
It's all right. I'll just follow that up by having my mic fall on. I did the same thing a second ago, man. It's just what the best people do. We use our equipment.
Just roll with it.
So Ian Tingen, is it Tingen or Tingen?
Yeah.
Tingen, okay, cool. Ian Tingen is the CEO of Power Levels Productions, a events management company that runs events for companies. In fact, Ian runs my party at Anime Expo, which I throw for industry. And that's a way that we get to interact with our customers. They're not consumers, but they're our customers, and we try to interact with them in real time, person to person, face to face. And Ian helps make that possible. He also does it for many other companies. And prior to Power Level Productions, he was the director of entertainment at Anime Expo. I can't read shit. I can't read this title, but I'm pretty sure it's CEO. And last but not least, I would like to introduce Mr. Greg Papillion. CEO of Left Field Media. Left Field Media is the company that puts on Anime NYC. And Greg is also the founder of New York Comic Con. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for coming. So I'm going to join you over there, and I don't know if I should even bring this.
Blind Chris is my favorite Chris.
Yeah,
This is
I
going to
like
be
it.
so much fun. I'm looking forward to this even more now.
Wait, I had to close this out strong. Man.
Exactly. He's like, and you're Alan, and you did something in manga? More of a quiz at this point.
So, as I did an absolutely terrible job introducing all of you and what you do, I would appreciate it if you could tell me a bit about what you've been doing to help your companies interact with fans. And, well, for Adam, I'd like you to tell me what you've been doing for your companies. And for Ian and Greg, I'd like you to tell me a bit about what you help other companies do. I know Ian runs events, like I said, for companies. Greg runs his own events, but his events put other companies in contact with their consumers. So,
for Crunchyroll, one of the biggest things being director of events, basically we have a whole events team and basically supported by wonderful people, our social media teams and our brand management teams and everyone else basically get us all the wonderful content we get to promote. Because as Kun mentioned in his keynote, Crunchyroll is more than just an online experience. It's a lifestyle brand. It's basically people want to live in it. And the best way to do that is actually coming and living in it. So basically for a weekend, we can get thousands of people to come and believe they're in a world of anime with all their friends. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And with Crunchyroll, basically, that whole lifestyle piece we basically want to put out into the world. Be it the Banana plushie pit, which basically is both a people love Banana and it's a wonderful thing, but also seeing people jump in there and just, they're having a rough day or not, doesn't even matter. The second they get in there, they're smiling. To Verve, which is a pop culture streaming service, our sister company that's under works with us all the time. We actually created a Verve art gallery, which is a big glowing tunnel with art made by fans of our logos and using it in different ways, which basically was, the idea of it was, what would happen if you walked into Verve, and basically in real life, and that's what we did. So basically trying to basically get the experiences that people take and the feelings they get from the shows they watch, the manga they read, and put into real life and say, here, it's everything you dreamed and more, is generally how we push it for Crunchyroll.
Yeah. So at Power Level, I should clarify a little bit too. So I'm actually a social psychologist by training. I did not kind of come into the event world proper as someone who came through like B school or kind of like getting. I'm a social psychologist, right? And so for me, kind of the core material of any event, whether it's a B2B or a B2C event, is understanding the people as they are. I mean, there's been a lot of great stuff that's been said about that today. And what we do at Power Level is to get the brands understanding their fans or understanding the people that they want to connect to, kind of from an outside perspective, right? Because one of the things that happens, like, is that brands kind of get this idea about their consumer, right? They get this idea about who they are, what they do, how they interact, what they love about the brand. And a lot of times that can kind of go askew when a industry is growing rather quickly, right? Like, especially in like, J-culture content, right? So we use our kind of psychological and production background to kind of help our clients understand their fans a little bit more and create more genuine connections, essentially. Like, I think in the little blurb there, we say that we're relationship counselors between fans and brands, and I think that's really like the succinct kind of version of what we do. Yeah.
Cool. So Left Field is a company I started in 2014 after a long career at Reed Exhibitions, where I did start New York Comic Con. So kind of got a very big B2B trade show company into the fandom space, which was no easy task. So our mission was to create a portfolio of great events, and first and foremost for us is the fan. So Shar, I thought was very well said, is that's a very central feature for everything we do, is we want to create that platform. It is, while our customers are also brands, they really do come in a slightly secondary way, right? So I think our role is a little bit different, that we're creating the platform. We're creating, this weekend, as Peter said, we'll see where it ends, but we're going to deliver 30 to 40,000 people in New York City and hopefully give them an amazing experience. That's a platform for Crunchyroll to engage. So we see ourselves as a partner, right? To be able to say, we'll deliver them, we'll give you the infrastructure, we'll make sure it's smooth and nobody has to wait in line too long to get a badge and all of those things. But then we also want to partner with you to figure out, is it that plushie pit? What's the thing you deliver that's going to make it really special for them, right? Because that's the challenge. I think the biggest challenge for us is making fans happy isn't just, getting them into the show and there's lots of booths. That's sort of bare minimum. It's what's unique? What am I going to see here that I'm not going to see everywhere else? And that's, I think, a really critical thing.
Okay. So speaking of uniqueness, what are some of the most interesting things that you've seen some of your exhibitors or participants in your events do?
You want me to start?
Go ahead. Go for it.
I think in the con world, I think the notion of access to talent, access to content that hasn't been seen, is almost always universally top of mind, right? So product is also a good one. So, are we releasing, are there going to be products that there's only 200 of these and they're only available here at this show? That kind of thing is almost always well received, right? So while there's experiential things, photo booths, plushie, all of that is great and memorable. To me, the stuff that's always something that we're always trying to work with our publisher partners on is what are you going to bring here that hasn't been seen, right? That someone feels like I'm the only one, right? It's that shareable content. This is special.
Ian, you've actually, almost the exact same question. You've done a lot of very different and unique smaller events for different companies.
Yeah.
What's one of the most unique things you've done or seen done?
Well, let's see. Can talk about one that we were really happy with earlier this year, actually, that happened at Anime Expo, was we did a lounge with Real Akuma, right? How many of you have gone to Anime Expo before? How many of you ever thought, God, I don't want to be in the sea of people right now? Yeah, right. Right? The show's clearing 100,000 people yearly now, right? We were talking with Real Akuma. They wanted to do something. They usually had a booth in the expo hall, right? But they didn't feel like they were connecting in a way that they really, was meaningful to their fans. So they came to us and said, well, what can we do? And we ended up building them a lounge in a hotel across the street where there was free Wi-Fi, free hydration, just all the creature comforts that you could need in the LA summer. And you were asking for unique. I know that sounds really simple, but when you have that match of 100,000 people in summer in Los Angeles, and you're providing this thing where it's just you can come in and you can relax and you can just kind of, chill out with your friends, that's unique, right? That's valuable, right? You don't have to be really ostentatious all the time. Although, speaking of ostentatious stuff, with Shar actually putting together the first set of Sailor Moon days, which you saw one of the photos of, that's freaking awesome too. Right? So yeah, you can run the panoply from bright and shiny and beautiful to, hey, we're going to provide something unique that just no one else is doing. So yeah.
And that's almost the mix there, basically. But I think I'm glad you're touching on, basically, is that it doesn't have to be, a $3 billion budget at E3 to touch someone. Yeah. I think it's like, I can't speak to a show, but some of the things we've done at shows, one of the ones I always think is so very special to me, and I know I saw in the fans' eyes, tears in their eyes in some of them, was actually, again, before it was the big thing, and at most even cons, because I know Pop Culture Cons was doing activations before anime started doing that, was when I was at Funimation and we launched Oran High School Host Club at Anime Expo. And we had a 3-part event, which was your usual premiere of the dub, big deal like this. We had not told the cast it was like that, so we flew the cast out, and they were all announced before we actually showed the event. Which, of course, the girls were screaming in the audience. I thought the Beatles had just walked in the room. I literally was this close to someone trying to say something. I was like, yeah, could not hear because they were screaming so loud. It was amazing. And that's the smaller part of the moment. Again, that's the bigger crowd. Everyone's amazing. This is the spectacle. But at a booth, we recreated the Oran High School Host Club. And I don't mean we built shelves and recreated the host club because that costs money. But basically, it was a proof of concept at this point, because again, there was no real activations really being done. So we basically took a section of the booth and put some tables and got some really nice cosplayers in blue blazers, and everyone got hosted like a Japanese host one. Line out the door. People basically were like, oh my God, I got hosted by my favorite character. And that's where something clicked, and for a lot of us going, there's something here. And this is, God, 10 years ago or so now? Again, it took a little while to actually get to that point. But when that kind of moment realized, it was like, we got to keep fanning this flame. There's something else here.
Cool. Actually, so earlier we were talking that this year you're founding CRX. Last year, you just had your second year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually having an interesting conversation with Greg about a month ago, and we were talking about CRX slightly and how its goals are very different from what other people's goals are. I was wondering, and one of those key points was that the goal isn't to turn a profit. Mm-hmm. What is the goal of CRX?
Well, first, yes, thanks to Greg for helping us launch that, because one of the biggest things I've ever done is actually launch Crunchyroll Expo, because I'd always been promoting that, actually launching it. So I learned a lot, to say the least. Slept little, learned a lot. The profit is part of Crunchyroll Expo. It has to be to make sure it keeps going, but it's not the reason for doing it. When myself, Greg, Peter, both from your team, Dallas Middaugh, formerly of Crunchyroll, basically we sat around and said we want to make a show, and we all go to shows, we've been going to shows forever. What's the show we'd want to go to at this point? What haven't we seen before? And Crunchyroll Expo, or CRX, was basically, what do we do? We take all the things they love, exhibitor halls, artist alley, panels, and just turn it a little bit this way, a little nicer that way, this special content this way, and deal with this kind of stuff, and start tweaking it that way. And basically the idea of Crunchyroll Expo came out. So the overall goal of Crunchyroll Expo is to create something that we've not seen in the US here. And we will do this not only to say, haha, we've done something, but also along the lines of like, hey, we're Crunchyroll, we can afford to take these chances and try these things out. If they work, please emulate, and I want to see this stuff at other cons. So it's basically kind of to raise the bar of what conventions are out there doing, because again, we can take those risks. High tides raise all ships kind of a motive, because I think basically the anime con world is, the overall fandom is amazing, the content's incredible, but the actual style of it, for especially the fan-run cons, which a lot of anime cons are, what you saw in the late 90s and what you see now is kind of the same thing. The formatting it is. They fall into it, and again, bless their heart, the fans love what they do, and they're just happy to keep doing it over and over again each year. But there's really a lot of seeing growth in video games events, pop culture, comics, all different spots. But anime seems to be just a level field. So we want to basically just push that boulder up a little bit of the hill, and everyone else go, that's cool, let me help you push that so we can make even a better experience for the fans.
Cool. And what do you think you've actually got? What has Crunchyroll gotten out of CRX?
Well, again, the bigger picture and the overall piece for Crunchyroll, as I mentioned, is we're a lifestyle brand, being able to actually own and operate and control a convention point to A to point B. Because some cons are good to work with, some are not as good to work with. So when you control the whole thing yourself, as I've learned, was very much along the lines of like, you can do a lot of things. You still got to play by the rules of convention centers and labor and stuff like that too. But when you set the pace of everything, you can basically program it how you want. It's not going to Anime Expo going, but I need 25 panels. And you go, you're insane. And rightfully so. basically we say, well, we got programming from content partners and different guests here too, but really we still got like 75 more panels to program with stuff that helps our licensors, which is stuff that basically gets our fans happy, which we basically can program towards what we, either a mix between what we see people want or test some ideas and say, let's try this and see if they like this, because I think this is where the trend's going in shows coming to seasons from now. So it's been a great playground to try new ideas and again, keep that brand Crunchyroll out there in a big way in real life.
So last thing you said, keep that brand out there. That's one of the big points?
Oh yeah, if I had to basically like bullet pointed out, I would say, yeah, profits to keep it going. Crunchyroll's brand to get it out there in IRL and do something where we're not seeing in other cons.
Okay. And what about you guys? What do you think that companies that are either participating in events, coming to you to have an event put on, or running their own events, what do you think they should be doing in order to get their brand out there, to get a closer interaction with fans? That's the point that some of them have been missing over time.
You know, I think the core thing that I come back to with just about every client, I mean, I've done this with you too, right? Planning the industry parties at AX is, you know, everyone, in the course of doing business, in the course of keeping the lights on, in the course of, you know, keeping your people employed, keeping your cat fed, whatever, everyone comes into a kind of a certain set of biases, and you can tell like the psych professors coming out here for a second. But you know, everyone comes into a set of biases, and that's not necessarily bad, right? You just have to get these to kind of go through life and make decisions quicker and more effectively, right? I think the best thing for anyone to do is to be willing to question those, though, especially if you are in a fast-moving industry, or if you are in an industry that is kind of new, right? Like I see this actually with a lot of new media companies as well, right? People who are trying to kind of capitalize on live streaming, and you know, they love using Twitch, but they're not a part of Twitch. So like, how do they understand that platform? How do they understand the people they're getting through it? Yeah, bottom line, at the end of the day, be willing to question your biases. And you know, that's, again, I'm able to say that too because I'm a third party with a lot of these things, right? I don't have to toe the company line. I don't have to be the one who's saying, yes, everything's great, right? So yeah, that's kind of, you know, that's my bias.
Okay, so for companies that have already been doing it, what you're kind of saying is be ready to change and to do different things.
Or be ready to know that you might not be totally right about what your fans like about your product or how they're consuming their product or how, you know, what they think of you, right? Yeah, just be ready to learn, I guess is the best way to put that.
Yeah, I would, so for me, I would add objective setting. So I sometimes find that we work with a brand and they might have a budget in mind and they want to do something cool. And that's fine, but we often will ask the question of what's the outcome you're looking for here? Are you coming because you want to move product?
Right.
Because if you're actually saying I want to have 1,000 units of whatever it is I sell sold at the show, that's a very different approach than I want to create a media frenzy or I just want to engage with my fans and give them a memorable moment. And so that's a question we ask all the time. I remember when we first started talking about CRX, those were, if you remember, that I kept feeding that back to you of what is it you want out of this? Because I would tell you different things depending upon what you said, right? So that's, I don't think a lot of companies take the time to really think about it. And sometimes the person maybe on the front line doesn't know why is the company funding this, and that's something I think is well worth taking a little extra time on.
What are the different reasons that a company might be funding an event?
Yeah, so in the con business, I mean, it depends. You know, an anime con, they're not all that different, you know, to a Comic Con. So one is sales, right? So there are companies, you know, if you think of like a Hasbro or a Funko, you know, that really think of it as I'm going to produce a certain number of exclusives. I want to move those exclusives. A Bluefin, as an example, right? They're going to move an enormous amount. That's a sales opportunity for them, and that's great, right? The fans are getting something they want, which is unique product that they can't find everywhere else, and they're getting the actual revenue. More often, I would say, is sort of the publicity side of things, which is we're releasing a new title, we're releasing a new something, we want to get attention. We want to engage the fans. And that is a little more complicated, right? That probably includes a panel, an appearance, a stunt. And I would say probably last would be more pure connectivity, right? Where it's it's much more about just, I want my brand to be resonant with these people. And these are my people, right? And I want to connect with them somehow, deliver something that they, a photo op, a giveaway. Those are, I would say, kind of the main three things that we typically find.
Okay. And actually, if I can just dovetail off that really quick, and something that you said as well, right, is like, everything that you're talking about with having goals is really important, right? And anyone who is an industry person, like Crunchyroll, anyone who's a licensor, anyone who's a distributor, knows that they have a bottom line to serve, right? But that's an interesting friction when it comes up against what Adam was talking about earlier, where like anime cons have just kind of, like, a lot of conventions are just this, like, this kind of flat level, right? And so you've got conventions that aren't necessarily adapting to these needs. And I mean, everyone here does great events, let's be clear, right? But that need for having these goals does often conflict with a lot of like conventions. And I'm not even just saying like, small, like kind of like, small like college cons, right? Like some shows that have in excess of 10,000 attendees don't understand this, right? And so if anyone is out there and is like thinking, well, how do I help my con like attract more industry? Start being goal oriented. Start being focused on the things that like, the people you want to bring in need.
It's kind of like when you see a lot of people who are like, I like comics, so I'm going to open up a comic book store. And it's like, have you done retail? Like, do you know anything about bands like budget? I know a lot about Spider-Man. Like, that's not going to cut it for too long. So you really got to have that balance where basically, again, you love the passion along those lines, but you also understand there is a business aspect to it. It doesn't have to keep you alive. It doesn't have to be the end-all, go blue chip kind of thing, but it has to be part of it.
Right. And I mean, there are wonderful people in the industry like you, Shar. Like, you can look to, there's a good fan to business path, right? It's not an unheard of thing. You just have to look for it and do a little bit of research. Anyway.
So actually, right on that particular point, something that I've noticed over the years is that very often, and also very much on Charlene's point earlier, you see a very different mentality at events from people who are just doing the job and people who happen to be fans. And it's the ones that happen to be fans that typically tend to be looking at a way to interact with fans, the way to have fun, do something interesting, and the business people are there to say, hey, this is our company, this is what we do, buy this product.
Right.
Sound about right?
Yeah.
There's a third in between, I would say also, because at Crunchyroll we have like, a lot of fans, but not everyone is there as a fan. But there's a lot of people who absolutely love accounting. There's a lot of people who absolutely
accounting fandom exists.
It does. There's accounting stands out there, and there's people who absolutely love engineering. So basically, when you put them in the whole, it's anime, it's something else. It's basically like I get to do this all day. That's amazing. So basically, I think basically you've got your fans who are passionate with education. You got people who are passionate about their job, and then you have the person's like, well, I guess I got to do this. So here's the company line and a flyer. Right. So basically, I think basically there's a little bit of leeway, but it leans more up. There's still passion is what they're targeted is the difference. Yeah.
So note to self, launch Accounting Con.
Accounting Con.
You heard it here first.
It's come on, there's got to be there. There's cons for everything now.
Calculators everywhere.
Right.
Dude, TI-82 panels just on that.
Just like drug wars programming. I'm old, sorry.
A few months ago, a few months ago, my accountant was talking to me about the beauty of having everything line up perfectly in a cash flow. It's just a thing of beauty to him.
Right. We see just numbers in a spreadsheet. He sees Zen.
Well, and, that's like I'm glad that you brought that up because one of the things that I'm constantly telling people is that we tend to think of, especially in this industry, fandom as being a very kind of like particular version of a relationship with J culture content. I'm not kidding when there's a fandom for everything, and in fact, if you look around, there's fandom for like anyone who goes to like a NASCAR race. Like we're talking like fandom, like straight up fans. Go to a sports bar during football season. You see people cosplaying constantly, right?
Yep.
Like I mean this stuff, and I think that's something else that's really important to think about that goes along with what you're saying, right? Is that like this idea of a fan does not have to be kind of just so narrowly tailored to only being this kind of person, right? Like find passion, like Charlene was talking about. Yeah.
It's not linear also, basically, when you're studying this stuff. Like a lot of things I'm looking at when I'm looking for events, I go look what they're in the trade show world that has not hit the entertainment space. Or NASCAR's an amazing way, basically, to explain it. Basically, they're the first to do luxury boxes and specialty streaming packages for their super fans. Everyone's actually dove in before any of the other sports ones, and they're making a bank out of it.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges with that, so for us as a business, we are a commercial enterprise, we are a profitable company, and we also employ a lot of fans, right? So this Anime NYC exists because of Peter Tatara, who is as big a fan as there is. Right. And I don't ever want to lose sight of that. We have a lot of fans on the team. But one of the things I think we do very well is also run scaled professional events that a company can think, I'm going to put a lot of money, a lot of reputation on the line here. This can't be amateurish. Right? That is something they will not tolerate, right? And shouldn't tolerate. So we are always walking that line of we'd like to be a successful company, a big company, but never at the expense of fans seeing it as a money grab.
Here.
And right? And I think that's one of the challenges. I actually am always really impressed by fans who run events, right? So in the comic business, which is where I started, a lot of these cons were started by a guy who liked Spider-Man, right? And I've bought shows from that guy, right? And some of those guys are still with us, right? I love those guys. And sometimes I look at it and say, all right, there's a lot of stuff they didn't do well, but my God, they got a lot of it pretty right, which is kind of shocking and embarrassing at what I do for a living. But,
we're professionals, damn it.
Yeah. So I think that is a fine line. I think the biggest risk you run is as you do get successful as an event and you get scaled, if you start thinking about the profit first, I think you can get in trouble. And when I start seeing that kind of fan reaction to events, I think they may be in trouble. And I cringe to think of it on my own events, and we're very sensitive to it.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with basically charging money for things, special experiences that are only limited amounts of things like that too. It's basically just making sure that's not the main reason. The bottom line is not why you're doing this. It's, hey, we can do this if we make this much. It's that kind of a way.
Right. And things I never have a problem. What our ticket price is. Should be accordance with the quality of the event. But we also look at it as like, this is the second year of a show and it's growing at an extraordinary pace. Only once in my career other than this did I experience a show going from kind of good initial success to this kind of explosive doubling.
First year New York Comic Con, man, holy crap.
I'm scarred by that to this day. And I apologize if anybody didn't get in. And,
we couldn't get out. That was the problem.
Either direction was difficult. So that is that's a really exciting thing. But I also look at it as we're investing heavily in the show, right? We're continually looking at this as we're spending on our talent budget is, we have a lot of guests coming in from Japan, enormous. Never normally spend that on it, but to us, Peter has a vision for what this event should be, can be, will look like in the future, and that is in conflict with make the most money now. And I'm proud of the approach we've taken. I think you'll all see it.
Actually, I'm glad that you put in that clarifier, make the most money now, right? Because one thing that I don't think has been explicitly called out in what anyone's talked about so far is that when you're looking to build genuine connections with fans, and that is a longitudinal play, right? That is not just today I'm going to get your ticket and I'm going to have you buy X dollars in merch. It is, I'm going to get your ticket today, you're going to buy my merch, you're going to be visiting my website, you're going to come back next year, you're going to be telling all of your friends about it, right? So it's not a now play. Absolutely. It is a long-term play.
And that's the best way to put it. Like I think BlizzCon is one of the people that do it so amazingly. What they spend on that show versus but ticket sales, even the virtual ticket, which makes a good bit of money, it still dwarfs what they actually make. But it's basically to launch a bunch of games, it's to get the community up and revved. It's basically excited about everything that's going to come the next 9 to 12 months. So basically it is very much this is wonderful and probably paid for in a month of World of Warcraft subscriptions. But basically it's all about the long-term play. Basically it's got to play into a big plan, because if not, you're missing some pieces.
Cool. Well, I'd like to ask you so much more, but I'm already 7 minutes over our time, and pretty soon someone's going to reach out with a chain and pull me off stage. So thank you very much. Cool. And
Good panel.
Thank you. Thank you.